Live from the Clarity from Chaos studios, heard worldwide, it's Dave Campbell. And so Dave and his guests explore, discuss, and work on solutions to some of life's biggest challenges. So, if you're ready, be prepared to be enlightened, amused, and even shocked by what you hear. And now, the real, the authentic, the one and only Dave Campbell.
Here we are again on another exciting episode of Clarity from Chaos. On this episode, we're going to explore a topic that is unknown to most Americans. Approximately 30% of our U.S. senators are compromised. This, added to the picture of corruption from our current president, does not provide a very credible government. Here on Clarity from Chaos, we have the author of the book, Security Risk, Senators, Part 1, Arizona to Massachusetts, and Security Risk Senators, Part 2, Michigan to Wisconsin, Mr. Trevor Loudon. Welcome to the show, Trevor.
Well, it's an honor to be on. Thank you, sir.
So, in going through your book, it gave me pause because I remember reading a book by Jerry Spence back in, I believe, like 98. And the name of the book was Give Me Liberty. And he proposed something called pancake democracy, which was basically we shelve everything that we have right now due to the lack of representation and whatnot, and draft representatives based on some kind of schema. So okay. I'm just wondering if we're rapidly getting to that point, Trevor, because it doesn't seem like anywhere you turn, somebody isn't on the take.
Well, that's right. You know, like you have the world's most powerful legislators that everybody wants to influence for their own personal, either political agenda or an economic agenda. And there's no security checks or background checks or security clearances in Congress. These people never get checked out, and the media doesn't go after them, especially if they're on the left. So our enemies, and I'm talking, China, Cuba, North Korea, Russia, in the local Marxist groups, Islamist groups, etc., have pretty much free rein to put their people into the Congress and the Senate to do their bidding, not our bidding, which is why the country is in the mess it's in.
Yeah, I would agree, because you sit there and you look at the number of gentlemen in there and that have gone in there basically on a rather, I would say, a good salary, but not a rich man's salary. And every one of them comes out of that area wealthy. So something's going on somewhere, because you can't in today's environment make $178,000 a year and then in 3 to 5 years end up, being a millionaire. So there's something's amiss.
Oh, they're just brilliant investors, didn't you know? They're just so clever.
Yeah. Okay. All right, brilliant investors. I'll give you that.
Yeah. Well, a little bit of insider trading, a few deals, but you think about it from, say, China's point of view. They want to influence America. They want to bring America down. So they got a choice. They can spend hundreds of billions of dollars on a trade war, which they might lose. They can spend trillions of dollars on a shooting war before they're quite ready, or they can spend a couple of $1 billion buying up American congressmen and senators to do their dirty work for them. What would you do if you were the leaders?
I think we've pretty well seen, the money's going into the Biden enterprise for basically, no kind of business acumen at all. And all of a sudden, there's millions of dollars flowing in. So, any kind of right-minded person would have to believe that there's a policy connection somewhere in there, right?
Well, that's right. Look what's happened to the advantage of China. China's allowed to buy up any of our land it wants, any of our factories it wants. It's allowed to basically buy up Hollywood. It's allowed to influence our sports because Nike controls sport and China controls Nike. That's why sport is so woke and everybody has to take a knee to Black Lives Matter. It has massive influence in education right from kindergarten to PhD level. You can't make an anti-Chinese film in Hollywood because China controls Hollywood. They are flooding the country with fentanyl, killing tens of thousands of Americans every year, and they're benefiting, and I believe are causing the open border policy because that's their main way of bringing about revolution to America. And they're also shipping over that we know there are hundreds of military age men coming across the border from China every week, believed to be, Michael Yon, the war correspondent, has got a lot of evidence on this, believed to be Chinese special forces. These are like Chinese Navy SEALs. And so what happens if we get in a war over Taiwan? The shooting starts. They'll be in America, blowing up bridges, poisoning reservoirs, assassinating mayors, assassinating, sheriffs, just creating chaos. They're here. They're now. They're allowed to be here. And nobody's stopping them because so many of our congressmen and senators are completely compromised by our enemies. They've been brought. They get the Democrats' ideology because a lot of the Democrats are sympathetic to communism, and they get the Republicans through money, business deals, etc. Mitch McConnell being a classic example of that.
Well, that's a good segue, Trevor. Can you go into let's go with some of part one, the Arizona to Massachusetts. Could you go into some details around your research?
Sure do. Yeah, okay. You don't come to a foreign country and claim that 40% of their senators are basically working for the other side without a lot of evidence. So Arizona, we'll look at Arizona. You got two senators there, Kyrsten Sinema, who's technically an independent, and you've got Mark Kelly, the former astronaut. Well, Mark Kelly met his American wife not in America, in communist China in 2002 at a Chinese Communist Party International Front gathering. He went back to that meeting for several years. He got entwined in Chinese business. He was involved in several strategic companies like Alibaba and Tencent, Shaklee Vitamin Products. He used to hawk their products from outer space when he was an astronaut. He also, used to ride on stage on a motorcycle in China with big Chinese flags on the handlebars. He is completely in bed with communist China. He is also in bed with a group in Phoenix who support Iran. This is the National Iranian American Alliance. This is the mullah's main lobby group in America. And they're trying to get him to support Biden's revived Iran nuclear deal so Iran can get the nuclear bomb. And now he's going for it. He was formerly opposed to it. Now he is for it. Kyrsten Sinema started her work with the Communist Party USA. People don't understand the Communist Party is very strong in Arizona. They originally started there for the mining industry. Now they're there to keep the borders open. They're there to stop anybody who wants to close the borders. And she used to sign their Mayday appeals. That's only a thing that is usually only allowed for Communist Party members. She had Communist Party members on her staff. They got her elected. She worked in Communist Party causes right up till 2018. She is very close friends with Regina Romero, the mayor of Tucson, Arizona, who is thinking of running for president on the Democratic side, and she is deeply in bed with the Arizona Communist Party. Regina Romero has spoken at their training school, everything. The Communist Party is loyal to China. So these people are loyal to a party that's loyal to China. And Kyrsten Sinema pretends to be a moderate, but she's out there promoting darker amnesty, millions of illegal aliens getting amnesty, which is a long-term communist program, but she's doing it She's Mitch McConnell's best friend, and she's pretending to be a moderate while she's basically still a communist.
Oh, that's terrific. So moving past Arizona and towards Massachusetts, who else do we have? We've got
Well,
Mark Kelly. We've got Mark Kelly and Kristen Sinema.
Well, you've got your two, you got your two senators from Georgia. You've got Raphael
Yeah, I'm aware.
Warnock
Yeah,
and
go ahead.
John Ossoff. Both of them are Marxists. You know, John Ossoff is very heavily involved with Democratic Socialists of America, which is a Marxist group. They helped him. He worked with them. When he got elected, he arranged for one of their leaders, a man called Daniel Blackman, a DSA comrade, to be appointed to the head of the Environmental Protection Agency for the entire American Southeast, from Georgia, Alabama, the whole. So this is a very important agency. They can shut down businesses like crazy.
Right.
Now a Marxist is running it, and he was basically appointed by John Ossoff. Well, he got Biden to appoint him, but he did the legwork on it. Raphael Warnock was mentored by a man called Calvin Butts. He was a big time left wing pastor up in New York. But when he was in Atlanta back in the 60s, Calvin Butts admitted taking out Molotov cocktails with his communist friends, burning down a church, burning down several businesses in Atlanta, and pulling white motorists out of their cars to beat them up. This is the man who mentored Raphael Warnock. Warnock was completely in bed with the communist movement when he was in New York. They brought Fidel Castro to their church, basically to a packed church in Harlem, and he was called a savior, a great revolutionary. Then Warnock comes here. He works heavily with Democratic Socialists of America. He works with Liberation Road. He works with, which is a pro-Chinese communist group. He works with Acorn. And then he hooks up with Stacey Abrams, who is a Marxist, and they run this big voter registration organization together. The third partner in their organization is the former head of New York Acorn, the famous vote fraud organization. And they work to energize the Democratic Socialists of America and all these Marxists to basically almost elect Stacey Abrams as governor of Georgia, and to elect Ossoff and Warnock himself to the Senate. He is a Marxist. He's a liberation theology, black liberation theology Marxist, as hardcore as you can get.
Oh, that's terrific.
But people think because he's a Christian, so he must be a God-fearing man, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, he fears somebody, but I don't think it's God.
Yeah, I don't think so either. So, what about Michigan?
Well, Michigan, you've got Debbie Stabenow, who is retiring,
right?
And you've got Gary Peters. Gary Peters is heavily involved with Democratic Socialists of America, a Marxist group. Debbie Stabenow is also involved with Democratic Socialists of America, has been for years. One of the leading Marxists in Michigan, a woman called Millie Jeffrey, took Debbie Stabenow to Soviet Russia twice, I think in the 1970s. Then she took her to Communist China in the 90s. This was a Marxist trip on both occasions. Stabenow also works with very hardcore leftist Muslim groups in Michigan. And she also worked with some of the communists on a big reparations bill for Southern farmers, Southern black farmers. This has been promoted by the communists in the South for a long time, and Raphael Warnock was a very big part of that as well. There's all these networks in the South of northern communists who came down in the 60s for the civil rights movement, and then they set up this co-op movement in the South, which is working for reparations for black farmers, reparations for blacks. Raphael Warnock's part of that, and so is Debbie Stabenow.
Oh, that's just terrific. So
there's a few of them.
Yeah, just a few. So with the mainstream media basically in their back pocket, because they don't, the mainstream media doesn't do any of this research. And other than your book, Trevor, how are the voters supposed to be able to get their hands on some information so they know who in the hell they're voting for?
Well, that's a very good point, because even most of the conservative media will touch a few of these people, but they never do really in-depth
No,
stuff.
they don't.
So what I've done with this series of books, and I've got another 6 books coming out on the Congress. Just released the first one the other day, called House Un-Americans. But Security Risk Senators, Parts 1 and Part 2, they're about 700 pages between the two of them, highly documented. These are putting it on the record that has never been put on the record before. And I already know that people are using the information. I know they'll be using them when it comes to the election. This has never been released to the American public before. And so, this should be front page news. There should be
Sure.
documentaries made about this. We did a documentary in 2016 called Enemies Within, which was seen by more than 3 million people on Amazon, etc. And we got a lot of play for that. We named a lot of the names in there, but this still needs a lot more coverage.
Oh, absolutely.
But because, how many Georgian Christians voted for Raphael Warnock because they thought he had a better character than the football player?
Oh, Herschel Walker. Well, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's all about packaging, right? And he was quite frankly a lot more smooth than Herschel. And but the flip side of that is, Trevor, if people knew his background and his history relative to the Communist Party and Marxism and all of the other things that he's been doing to undermine the very fabric of this country, I don't think he probably would have pulled it off. So somebody's given him a hell of a lot of cover, as all of them.
Yeah, well, the media does. They've got this big non-profits, that work in Georgia. Georgia is a big target because if what the left are trying to do is flip about 5 or 6 southern states to the Democratic Party. They've sort of almost got North Carolina. They've almost got Georgia. They've almost got Arizona. They're working on Tennessee, and they're working on Texas. And if they can flip North Carolina and one other state, especially if they can get Texas, there will never be another Republican government ever in American history. Right. So what is happening in Georgia is critical, and you make the good point. Herschel was unpolished. He had a few skeletons in his closet, but his heart was in the right place, basically a patriot. Warnock is a anti-American communist of the worst degree. But because he's got Reverend before his name, he is now your senator, because the media would not go after his background. They'd go after Herschel's. Everything that Herschel did, every little flib that Herschel made, they'd hammer him, all his little scandals he had, and he had a few. But look, Herschel, I would have chosen Herschel Walker in a heartbeat over Raphael Warnock.
Well, I certainly voted for him.
The people in Georgia were not told the information, and they were not told the information about Ossoff either. Both Marxists. That is not who should be representing Georgia.
No, but you just take that and you just expand it across the United States. And, if we're sitting here talking about 30% of the Senate that's compromised, God only knows in the House.
About the same.
Okay, so
about 100 to 120 are compromised, deeply compromised.
Okay, so we've got 30% of our government, and right now, unfortunately, the White House, completely compromised, and people are not, really starting to rally around. Let's get them the hell out of there. I know, they're doing everything that they can to eliminate Trump, and they're bashing all the other GOP nominees, of which a couple of them are, pretty stand-up-ish and has some pretty good messages. So I don't know. So my next question, I guess, Trevor, is your outlook for 24, or because, excuse me, because if we don't not only get rid of the 30% both in the House and in the Senate, and capture both of them from a Republican standpoint, so we can do something with it, and drain, or get rid of a lot of the appointees, so we get rid of a lot of the back end nonsense, the swamp, if you will. It's a pretty grim outlook.
Well, I think what we have to confront is we are in a Marxist revolution now. This is not the normal America where it's Republican, Democrat turnaround. The Democratic Party is now led by people who supported the Viet Cong in the 70s, who supported the Sandinistas in the 80s. They supported Fidel Castro. They're now in their 60s or 70s, but they're still the same revolutionaries they were in their 20s and 30s, and they want their revolution before they die. And all they need is one more election where they get both houses, because what they're going to do is legalize 20 to 40 million illegal immigrants,
Right.
give them all citizenship and voting rights, and that will be it. There will never be another conservative government, and they can consolidate their communist power from that point. So we're one bad election away from losing this country. Conversely, we are 3 or 4 elections away from saving it, because, Trump gets in again. He's promised to purge 10,000 people from the bureaucracy. I think that's a good start. That shows he is aware of the situation. I'd say it'll have to be more than that, but that's a good start. Ron DeSantis has got great ideas about clamping down on the activities of China and Syria and Venezuela and Cuba and North Korea in this country. These people are taking national security seriously. But we have a divided Republican Party. We have the problem of vote fraud, and we have a base that is all over the place right now. It's been, so yeah. Look, I think we're going to need divine providence to get through this.
I do too.
I really think so. But God doesn't help wimpy, whiny, whingy, gutless people. What we need is a whole bunch of brave people standing up and fighting for this country. And maybe God will decide we're worth saving. But that's what it's going to take.
I would hope so. So where can people find your books, Trevor?
Well, you can make Jeff Bezos richer and go to Amazon, but you can also, but the best way is to, he's rich enough, is to go to trevorloudon.com. So Loudon is Loudon, trevorloudon.com. There you can order my books online, and I got DVDs, Enemies Within the Church. I got quite a few things there. You can get personally signed copies if you want to give them away as gifts or for yourself. That's what I sell. That's what I recommend. Go to trevorloudon.com, order Security Risk Senators Parts 1 and Part 2, and look at my other selection of books and DVDs that are available too.
Great. Well, it's been a remarkable conversation, Trevor, and I really appreciate you spending the time with us. We've been speaking to Trevor Loudon, who's the author of Security Risk Senators Part 1, Arizona to Massachusetts, and Security Risk Senators Part 2, Michigan to Wisconsin. And I really appreciate you coming on, sir.
Anytime, Dave. It's been a pleasure. And, good luck to you, sir. And just God bless you and your audience. And we just got to understand that we have to save this country. That's our duty.
Yep.
There's no argument about that.
Nope.
We are here because people sacrificed to give us this country. And it's our job to honor their sacrifice, and it's our job to save this country for our children and our grandchildren going forward. There's no choice about that.
Absolutely. God bless, sir.
God bless you too. Thank you and your audience. Thanks, Dave.
Yep.
Thank you for listening. If you would like to listen to more Clarity from Chaos shows on demand, go to clarityfromchaos.buzzsprout.com or send Dave an email at info@clarityfromchaos.com for information on previous shows. You can also listen to the show on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Twitter, or Google Podcast. Until next time, please remember, it's not about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain. Be well, everyone.